Well, joining me now is a special guest, Ross Babbage, CEO of Strategic Forum and the author of a new book, The Next Major War, Can the US and its Allies Win Against China? Welcome to the program. Great to have you with us. Well, what do you think? What is the likelihood of us having a major war against China this century?
Well, unfortunately, it's higher. It's a higher probability than many of us would want. And the reason for that really is Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, has made it very clear that Taiwan must be incorporated, can and must are the terms he often uses, be incorporated into China. The Taiwanese, of course, don't want anything to do with that. And the US President Biden has 4 times since his election made clear that if China attacks Taiwan, the United States will be there to help defend Taiwan. And so that really means that here we have the 2 major powers, global powers in the Indo-Pacific at loggerheads. And it's very hard to see how this situation can be resolved unless we can get some sort of cooling of the temperature and get people talking more seriously together.
When you speak to Australia's political leaders, they seem to say that there's 2 arms, 2 things that Australia needs to do to protect our sovereignty. The first is making sure our defence spending, our defence equipment is up to scratch, which it's not at the moment. And the second is having the alliance in place, alliances like the Quad, to make sure that we have those strategic partnerships to counter China. How do you think Australia is going on both of those areas?
Look, we really do need to do a lot more, a lot quicker in getting the defence system organised. And in particular, we might have to actually, whether we like it or not, we might find ourselves fighting alongside our American and other allies much faster than we anticipate. So we've really got to be ready within 2 or 3 years to cope with that sort of really terrible scenario. And that really means we need a lot more consumables, particularly for the military side, a lot of more munitions and a lot of other things beside. In terms of the relationship building...
Just apologies for interrupting you, but you think it could be as soon as 2 to 3 years that that something unfolds over Taiwan?
I do, and I'm not the only one. There was a recent poll of international security analysts in the United States, and 70% believed that there is likely to be a major war in the Indo-Pacific within this decade. And we've had 2 successive directors of the CIA in testimony at Congress make it very clear that Xi Jinping has asked his military to be ready by 2027 to fight a major war. And B, that they believe that the risk is very high. And also all the detailed analysis we've done ourselves with our partners and friends come to the same conclusion. Yeah. This is a very serious situation, and I think we need to be much more prepared and get ourselves ready in the military, in the relationship building, but also with our economic development to make sure we can withstand whatever comes.
Yeah, and that we're not overly reliant on China. Look, just very quickly, we're almost out of time, but I'd really like to ask you about the origin of the pandemic, the intelligence that the virus might have started, leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, an inadvertent leak. What's your assessment of everything we've heard?
Oh, look, I think all the evidence we've seen now coming from multiple sources, and it continues to be corroborated, is that there appears to have been something happen in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. It was probably an accident, but there's a lot more to this in that why were they working on some of these things and with whom were they working? Because there is some evidence and certainly been allegations that some senior US officials were funding some of this activity, in very dangerous activity, which may have set some of the preconditions for the leak and therefore the pandemic.
Yeah, no, we've definitely seen evidence that US funding went towards the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And as you well know, the usual practice of the Chinese Communist Party is cover up, cover up, cover up, but we haven't seen world leaders stand up and demand answers adequately. Ross Babbage, I really appreciate your insights this evening. Thank you for your time.